Where are they focusing their efforts?
It's interesting. Last year, fair trading was basically focusing their efforts in regions. We saw a sweep through the Sutherland Shire. We saw a sweep going up the Northern Beaches. This year, we're seeing them go from Menai to Sutherland Shire to Northern Beaches, Hornsby. They're going all over Sydney. So
the mountains.
Yeah, they're not picking one particular area. We're hearing from agents all over Sydney.
A bit more of a scattered approach, I suppose you would say. Okay, well, let's start with previously when they were doing those sweeps, they had, I suppose, focuses on maybe 3 years of CPD certificates or this. In the last, 6, 7, 8 weeks, what have they been focusing on?
Yeah, we saw last year, perhaps after the underquoting guidelines had come in January last year, they were giving agents a little bit of time to get their policies and procedures in place. Now it seems that they've decided, well, you've had 18 months, 17 months since the legislation's come in. Let's get out there and see that you're complying with the legislation.
They were giving warnings. Now they're not. Now they're fining.
Yep. The smiling assassins, you could call them.
Yeah.
So they've definitely got a couple of golden rules that they seem to be focusing on. First one being the 10% rule. Is that right?
Absolutely. And underquoting guidelines are very clear. You can have the price range 10% only from the bottom of that range. So from the bottom of the range to the top of the range can only be 10%.
So really clearly, obviously, if your bottom figure or your bottom figure on that range is $1 million, you can't go anything more than 1.1. We've heard some pretty out there stories, haven't we?
There has been a few, yeah. And they're being. Some pages saying they're being tough, and you can put it that way. I mean, one agent had 950 to $1,050,000. They were 5,000 over. It should have been 950 to $1,045,000. They were fined. They weren't happy about it, but the legislation's black and white. Can't be any more than 10% from the last price.
That's it. And there's no arguing. It is the law.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh yeah, but you'll have a look through 3 other files, you won't find it, or it's only 5%. I've been a good boy, I haven't done anything else. It's TLC, tough luck, Charlie. You break the law, you get fined.
Looking at that.
And they are just not taking any prisoners in that regard. You've got to make sure 10% from that lowest figure. Okay, what about developments? That seems to be a interesting...
It is, in so much as you can look through any newspaper any weekend and you'll see development sites advertised from, and they give the ranges. And the legislation makes it quite clear. You cannot use the word from, over, above, plus, or any similar word.
Yeah, it's for residential. Yes. But development sites are included in residential. But they will allow more than 10% on off-the-plan developments and development sites. So, if you had one-bedroom apartments priced at 5 to 600, and I nearly said from then, and it's hard to get out of your dialogue, but 5 to 600, that's more than 10%, that's fine. 2 bedrooms, 7 to 800, 3 bedrooms, $1 million to 1.1. That's fine, or 1.2. You can have that as long as that's the asking price.
That's right. You've got the asking price of the unit. So if you've got a 1-bedroom at 500, you've got a 1-bedroom at 800.
You can
said
from
say, I didn't.
You did.
You can say 500 to 800,000. But as soon as that 500 sells, the advertising needs to be adjusted accordingly. So yes, it's quite clear. But again, you use that word from in your advertising, whether it be on the web, in the paper, wherever, when they see that word from, and of course they're allowed to go back 12 months to when this legislation came in, or 18 months to when the legislation came in.
You can go back. They can go back further. We had one agent who's put a new website up, and the IT guy grabbed all the listings across, but he picked one from over 18 months ago. And it's not being offered anywhere, but it's one page on his website.
But it's now under from new legislation.
Had from, and they got fined. And I thought that was really tough. It was a clerical error, IT error, but they're still fining for it.
TLC.
So we know that fair trading, before they get into an office, they're often going to check either some marketing online or whether that be as they walk through on the window display. What are they going to look for when they come into the office?
Well, as they walk in, they'll either pick some 3 to 5 properties out of your window or off your website and just say, I want to look at these properties. They mightn't have the address, I'll point them out to you, or they might have the address and I'll pick them randomly. And they'll ask to look at the file, they'll open up the file, and the first thing they're going to look at is the agency agreement.
Yeah. And not how much you're charging or
if it's valid enough so you get your commission.
What version you're using. They're looking at
one thing,
your estimate of the likely selling price.
Yep.
And to make sure that it is within the 10% range.
That's their starting point.
Exactly right.
And straight from there, they're going to look at your marketing, and if you are putting a price or a price range on, it's within that, especially an auction property, it's within that estimate. And they're going to be following that through to, if you change your estimate, we'll talk about that in a moment, that you've followed that through. If you had offers and you've changed those offers, so we can talk about that as well. They just follow the whole process of the sale to make sure that you're sticking within the guidelines.
The main thing that they seem to be looking at is that estimated price reasonable? Can you substantiate that price that you're putting in your agency agreement, that it is reasonable, and what evidence you have to support that?
So you need some sort of paperwork in this regard.
Yeah, if I can, they're not going to argue what price you put in there. They're not real estate agents. They don't want to be real estate agents, okay? They enjoy what they do, and that's finding agents. But they won't argue that the figures you put in. They're going to see how you've been able to justify those figures.
That's right. And I mean, there's no requirements in the law that says how many there should be there.
No.
But obviously, if you can't find enough comparables, then you may need to examine other methods to, again, substantiate your appraisal.
Well, we know from visiting one of our clients that one comparable is not enough, because they're saying that they're arguing that that's not enough, and you need to show how you arrived at your estimate. Some people say 3, but I'd go 3 to 5 if you can. But more importantly, you just can't print off RP data and say there they are. You've got to make little notes to say why are you using this as a comparable. Land size.
How do they compare?
Yeah.
How do they not compare even?
It doesn't have to be an essay. Just land size, same type of property, just so they can see that you've actually looked at it and you've seen why you're going to use that.
Yeah. It's important to have that data there. I mean, if we don't have the 3 sales, what else would we use?
Well, you can use market conditions. You could use seasonal factors.
Yes.
On the beaches.
Yep.
You could use the vendor's motivation or vendor circumstances.
Yep.
There's lots of other things you can use.
Yeah, material facts.
Absolutely.
The zoning, any future
Especially
use.
with the change of zoning in Sydney at the moment.
Yeah.
Sydney's being rezoned all over.
Yep, exactly right. So all that sort of information, and any other evidence you've got, like your clearance rates, your days on market, your auction rates.
Is it a buyer, seller or balance market?
That's correct. All this sort of information adds to what Fair Trading love, paperwork, to see that, yes, this isn't just a hit and miss.
Well, let's talk about that, Sherry. Paperwork. Are you good at paperwork?
Leave it out.
The girls here reckon you're terrible at paperwork. Look, I'm terrible at paperwork. They give me something, they got to photocopy it because I'm going to lose it within a day. So, but the issue is you're going to need systems in place to make sure the paperwork is there. And if you don't want Fair Trading knocking on your door, compliance is not happening just when they walk in. Compliance is an everyday thing. And if you have the right paperwork in your file, they're going to leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly right. So you want to make sure that you've got good evidence wrapped around that. After we've been able to substantiate the file, the estimate, then they're going to make sure that we've kept that reasonable throughout the program.
And reasonable is in the guidelines. They say that agents should revise their estimate on a weekly basis.
Well, how would you do that?
Well, at a sales meeting.
Good.
Just a minute part of that sales meeting. They're not saying you've got to change it. It's your estimate. If you believe it, that still stays the same. But the old days, before they brought these...
change, review.
Or review, okay,
there,
yeah. But in the past, we used to put it on our agency agreement, set and forget.
Yes.
Now you've got to move it round depending on the feedback that you're getting. Whether it's up and depending what marketplace you're in, whether it's down, they're looking for that movement.
So if you were an agent out there, or even a licensee, or anyone in that regard, if you were to do almost a little internal audit on yourself or in a sales file, you would do, by starting off with your agency agreement, looking at that, certainly the likely selling price, then looking at your evidence as to why you think that's reasonable. Then the next thing that Fair Trading will look at is the marketing and make sure that all marries up. Then you guys mentioned the review, if there's any change, up or down, and that the marketing is then going to be reflected in that change as well.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a good framework to be able to check as an agent?
That's a great start. They'll go through their tick boxes of, okay, I'm looking for this. Then it'll get to any offers that you receive. What's your communication been like with the customers?
Mm-hmm. Yes, if you get an offer and that it's rejected on price, then you do have to move your estimate up.
Which is something the underquoting guideline mentions, because it talks about what's in the Property Stock and Business Agents Act, but also about what's in the Australian Consumer Law. And this is where the offers come into it. So let's say we had a range of, say, $1 million to 1.1, 10%, and we had an offer that was rejected on price at $1,020,000. And that's happened, say, 2 weeks into their campaign. What is fair trading going to then look for?
Well, of course, we are going to, before we actually submit that offer of $1,020,000, we're going to qualify the offer and make sure that if there's any terms and conditions or restrictions around that, is it subject to finance? Is it subject to their mother-in-law having a look at it? What's going to be the situation, whether that is a genuine offer where they can proceed straight away.
But if it's rejected, they're going to look at that you've moved your price range to $1,021,000 or higher. And if you don't, and you're misleading buyers believing something that's not true, they'll fine you.
Yep, that's exactly it. So they want
because their understanding is that if you've rejected an offer at that level, to continue advertising at a price that's less is misleading the buyers. So they want to see more than.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a matter of documenting all communication with your clients. You're going to do that. Any email inquiries, you're going to drag to your file and maintain all documentation.
I'll look at those emails. I'll be looking at those emails. And you have to move it up. So there's no doubt about that. And the way they find that is because you've got to document all offers to your owner. So they'll look at the document, see the offer, and then see that you haven't moved it up, and it's a timing error.
Exactly right.
All right. Well, it's certainly going to be it is a focus and has been a focus for fair trading.
It's going to be for a little while now, so check your files.
It needs to be our focus as well, because we certainly don't want to be held in that regard. Yeah. Now, another interesting thing that fair trading is checking a lot more is the fraud prevention guidelines.
Yeah, this has come a bit of a...
left field almost, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I got to say, you look at the fraud prevention guidelines and they say guidelines, and I was saying for quite a while, they're guidelines. You make up your own and do all of this and check it. But so fraud prevention?
Well, they're out there, again, when they've inspected offices. We've had a selection of fines being issued as well as warnings being issued for not having that in the file. Of course, it all came from a few years ago when people in Western Australia and the ACT had properties sold that the owners didn't sign off on agency agreements. They were away or they were sold.
It came through the property management. And they changed their information, and then they decided they want to sell really quickly. So the agent sold it really quickly and didn't check the...
The crux of it is, now fair trading wants us to prove and check that the person signing our agency agreement is the owner of the property.
And now in these fraud prevention guidelines, they do talk about our responsibilities as an agent. So there isn't specifically anywhere in the Property Stock and Business Agents Act or regulations which talk about fraud prevention. However, what they do refer to, if they are going to enforce this, is going to be in relation to our rules of conduct.
That's true.
Yeah, well, the rules of conduct are within the regulations. There's 3 different rules of conduct that this applies to, and if we don't carry out our responsibilities in getting the ID checked, then we're breaching the rules of conduct.
Which rules? You want to do one? You can do one? I'll do one?
Well,
show me your knowledge.
I would say honesty, professionalism. We're required to use skill, care and diligence in the execution of our duties.
That's rule 3 and 4.
Yeah, act in the best interest of your clients.
That's rule 6.
The big one.
Fiduciary obligations, rule 2. They're tying that all to the fraud prevention guidelines. A lot of the rules of conduct
do overlap with each other anyway, and that's why they've pulled out these 4 and they've become a big point. So the rules say there needs to be some sort of procedure within an office in order to check that the owner of the property is that actual owner.
Yeah, we'd like to see driver's licence, rates notice, forms of ID, and it's something that the agent signs off on. To confirm that they have...
Yeah, some agents are getting photocopies of it, and you can. That's good risk management. But as long as you sign that you've viewed them and recorded what you viewed and document, that's fine. It's not a problem. I mean, they have an ID one anyway. The Commissioner suggested one.
A form, you mean?
A form, yeah.
They have a suggested form in which that you could utilise if you wanted to as part of your policy and procedure in what you would check every time you sign an agency agreement.
That's both in sales and property management.
It is. So the first one is what in that particular form is they want to check someone's primary proof of identification. What's the first tick box that you should look at?
Driver's licence is the easiest.
Passport.
So that's the easiest way. And then they also ask
for photo ID.
A photo ID. They also ask for a secondary form of personal identification, being...
Rates notice is the easiest one. That's the third one. But yeah, you could use a credit card or a Medicare card, that sort of thing as well.
Gas, you can use those.
Those sorts of things.
The second form.
Obviously, the idea of the primary proof is to check that I know that you're Brian Cannan. I can see your identification and I can see that you are Brian. Yeah. It's good to know.
You should know that.
Yeah.
Hello, Brian.
Second to that is obviously if I was to look at someone's, say, driver's licence, for example, it's obvious that they don't necessarily own the property that's on that particular licence. So it doesn't check proof of ownership. What does the form say in terms of how to check someone's ownership of a property?
Current rate notice.
Pretty simple. So having those three tick boxes is what the guidelines suggest, recommend to utilise within an office in and around a policy and procedure around that as well.
It's important what Andrew said earlier. They are checking, they're giving some warnings, and they have fined.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing it, we recommend that you do.
Again, just like when the underquoting guidelines came in, we need to change our habits. We need to break old habits, move into new habits. It's exactly the same with the fraud prevention guidelines.
The agents who are using the fair trading suggested form, they're finding it's not hard. It's got fair trading on it. They're just saying, this is a new law that fair trading's brought in, and that's what I've got to do.
That's exactly it. Just a matter of changing our habits.
So if anyone out there who doesn't have these sort of policies or procedures in their office, if you wanted to let us know, you can comment below or send me an email, lucas@thinkrealestate.net.au. I'm more than happy to share an example policy and procedure that you can use with the fair trading suggested documentation as well, because at the end of the day we're here and we want to help every agent out there and to help sure that they make sure they're doing the right thing. They may be doing the right thing, but make sure their paperwork backs that up.
We don't want you fined.
No.
All right, so for everyone out there, that is episode 1 for Think Tank. Thank you very much for joining us. If you had any questions, feel free to comment below. And if you did want a copy of those fraud prevention policies, let me know. Send me an email, lucas@thinkrealestate.net.au. On behalf of Andrew, Brian and myself, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.